Welcome to the Conspiracy Files with Paige Carter. I'm your host, Paige Carter. In the wake of World War II, the world was left to grapple with the horrific legacy of the Third Reich. Yet, as the dust settled over the ruins of Europe, a secret operation was initiated, one that would see the United States welcoming with open arms the very architects of the Nazi war machine. This operation, codenamed Operation Paperclip, was a covert program run by the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency. Its goal? To recruit and procure the services of highly skilled German scientists, engineers, and technicians, many of whom had served the Nazi regime. The purpose of this clandestine operation was to gain a technological edge in the impending Cold War and the race to space. These recruited scientists, who had once worked on Nazi weapons of mass destruction, were now tasked with creating the United States' own arsenal of rockets and ballistic missiles. But the question remains, why would America, a nation that had just defeated the Nazis, secretly employ the very architects of their enemy's war machine? To understand the reasoning behind this paradoxical move, we need to delve into the complex dynamics of the post-war era. The ending of World War II had not brought about global peace, but rather, it had ignited a new kind of conflict, the Cold War. This was a battle of ideologies, capitalism versus communism, and it was a race where the finish line was the final frontier, space. The United States was in a stiff competition with the Soviet Union, and both superpowers were desperate to assert their dominance in space technology. Winning this race would not only mark a triumph in scientific achievement, but would also signal ideological superiority. To this end, the U.S. government viewed the German scientists not as war criminals, but as precious intellectual capital that could give America a competitive edge in this new conflict. The United States' eagerness to exploit the knowledge of these scientists, however, was not without its ethical implications. Many of these individuals had been members of the Nazi Party. Some had even used slave labor from concentration camps in their work for Hitler's war machine. Yet, in a breathtaking display of moral flexibility, the American government chose to overlook these inconvenient truths. Operation Paperclip thus stands as a chilling testament to the realpolitik of the Cold War era. It's a story of how, in the game of power and dominance, even the most heinous crimes can be swept under the rug, and former enemies can become allies. It's a story that forces us to question the lengths nations are willing to go to in their pursuit of supremacy, even if it means dancing with the devil himself. The world in the 1940s was a landscape of change and uncertainty. The ashes of World War II had barely cooled when the United States and the Soviet Union, erstwhile allies, found themselves embroiled in a new kind of war. The Cold War was a battle fought not with bullets and bombs, but with ideology and information, a conflict of persuasion and propaganda, of espionage and secrecy. It was in this atmosphere of heightened suspicion and fear that Operation Paperclip was born. The United States found itself in a race against time to harness the scientific prowess of Nazi Germany, with its advanced rocket technology and weapons research, before the Soviets could do the same. The end of World War II had not extinguished the fires of conflict. It had merely transformed them into a different kind of warfare. The United States government, recognizing the strategic advantage these German scientists could bring, initiated Operation Paperclip in 1945. The operation was shrouded in secrecy, known only to a select few within the government. Officially, the program was named after the ordinary office supply used to affix the scientists' new identities to their personnel files. Unofficially, it was a tacit acknowledgement of the clandestine nature of the operation. The political climate of the era was fraught with tension. The world was divided into two ideological camps, and the United States was determined to come out on top. The promise of advanced rocket technology, which could potentially tip the balance of power in their favor, was too tantalizing to resist. The recruitment of these Nazi scientists, however, was not without controversy. Many within the government and the public would have been horrified had they known the nature of the operation. These were men who had served a regime responsible for some of the most horrific crimes in human history. Yet their expertise was viewed as a necessary evil, a pragmatic decision in the pursuit of national security and supremacy. In the shadowy corridors of power, moral considerations were weighed against strategic necessity. The decision to bring these scientists to America was a calculated gamble, a move made with the knowledge that the stakes were incredibly high. The space race had begun, and the United States was determined to win, even if it meant courting the very architects of the enemy's war machine. The harsh reality of the Cold War era was that, in the grand game of global politics, the ends often justified the means, no matter how unsettling those means might be. The orchestration of Operation Paperclip involved a diverse cast of characters and an intricate network of organizations, each playing a critical role in the execution of this ambitious plan. Among the key players were the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, JIOA, the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, and the U.S. State Department. The JIOA, a branch of the Office of the Director of Intelligence, was primarily responsible for overseeing the operation. The agency was tasked with identifying German scientists of interest, extracting them from Europe, and integrating them into American society. On the other side of the Atlantic, the OSS, a predecessor to the modern Central Intelligence Agency, played a crucial role in the initial stages of the operation. Under the leadership of General William Donovan, the OSS was responsible for the initial identification and recruitment of German scientists. They were the ones who first recognized the strategic advantage these scientists could provide, and they were instrumental in persuading the U.S. government to sanction Operation Paperclip. The U.S. State Department, meanwhile, was entrusted with the delicate task of navigating the legal and diplomatic obstacles. Their role was to facilitate the immigration of these scientists and their families, often bending or circumventing established immigration laws to do so. As for the scientists themselves, they were a diverse group, each with their own motivations. Among the most prominent was Wernher von Braun, the architect of the V-2 rocket program during the war. Von Braun and his team were captured by American forces in 1945. Seeing an opportunity to continue his work and avoid prosecution for war crimes, von Braun cooperated with the Americans, eventually becoming the figurehead of NASA's Apollo moon landing program. Another essential figure was Arthur Rudolph, a manager at the Mittelwerk factory where the V-2 rockets were produced. Despite the factory's use of forced labor, Rudolph was brought to America under Operation Paperclip. His expertise contributed significantly to the development of the Saturn V rocket, which eventually carried the Apollo missions to the moon. These figures, along with hundreds of others, found themselves in a strange new world. Far from their homeland, they were now working for the very nation they had once fought against. Their knowledge and skills were used not for destruction, but for exploration, shaping the course of the space race, and in turn, the course of human history. Yet beneath this veneer of scientific progress, the complex and morally ambiguous origins of Operation Paperclip remained an uncomfortable truth, buried deep within the annals of Cold War history. For years, the truth about Operation Paperclip remained shrouded in secrecy, buried beneath layers of Cold War politics and the thrilling narrative of the space race. The American public, dazzled by the triumph of the moon landing, was oblivious to the clandestine operations that had facilitated this monumental achievement. The first inkling of the operation's existence emerged in the mid-1970s when investigative journalist Clarence Lasby published his book, Project Paperclip: German Scientists and the Cold War. Lasby's extensive research unveiled the secret program, throwing light on the U.S. government's recruitment of Nazi scientists. His revelations, however, only scratched the surface, leaving the depth and extent of Operation Paperclip largely unknown. It wasn't until the 1990s, with the declassification of numerous government documents under the Nazi War Crimes Disclosure Act, that the full scale of Operation Paperclip began to reveal itself. These documents confirmed the U.S. government's role in transporting over 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians, many of whom were known Nazis, to America. The declassification also highlighted the lengths to which government agencies had gone to conceal their actions. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, under the leadership of J. Edgar Hoover, had systematically sanitized the records of the imported scientists, eliminating any evidence of their Nazi affiliations. This process, known as bleaching, allowed the scientists to circumvent immigration laws and enter the United States. Public reaction to these revelations was a mix of shock, disbelief, and outrage. The fact that the U.S. government had knowingly protected and employed Nazi scientists was a sobering contradiction to the nation's self-proclaimed ideals of justice and liberty. Yet, despite these revelations, the story of Operation Paperclip remains overshadowed by the spectacle of the space race. The faces of the moon landing remain those of the astronauts, not the German scientists who made it possible. The legacy of Operation Paperclip is a complex and uncomfortable one, a stark reminder of the moral compromises made in the name of progress and national security. As the curtain lifted on Operation Paperclip, it became apparent that the shielding of its machinations was far from a solo act. A web of complicity extended beyond the government, entangling corporations and other institutions, all of whom played pivotal roles in ensuring the program's secrecy. A prime example of this is the case of Arthur Rudolph, a former Nazi and the project director for the Saturn V rocket program at NASA. In 1984, Rudolph was confronted with evidence of his alleged war crimes. Rather than face prosecution, he chose to leave the U.S., effectively renouncing his American citizenship. The narrative around his departure, however, was carefully constructed. Publicly, it was framed as a voluntary decision, a narrative that effectively masked the government's role in forcing his exit. Similarly, controversial figures like Wernher von Braun, who had held a major post in Hitler's V-2 rocket program, were meticulously presented to the public as reformed characters, their past affiliations artfully concealed. Von Braun, in particular, was portrayed as a starry-eyed dreamer, an ardent advocate of space exploration, rather than a former Nazi. His narrative was carefully crafted, bolstered by public appearances on Walt Disney's television programs, where he spun tales of a future where humans colonized Mars. Furthermore, corporations that profited from the technological advancements brought about by these scientists also played a part in maintaining the silence. Industries benefiting from new technologies, ranging from aviation to pharmaceuticals, had vested interests in ensuring that the origins of their successes remained obscured. The corporate sphere became an active participant in the act of forgetting, prioritizing gains over moral accountability. In the academic world, similar patterns emerged. Universities that had welcomed Nazi scientists onto their faculties avoided scrutiny by keeping their pasts under wraps. The pursuit of knowledge was prioritized over the ethical implications of their associations. In essence, the story of Operation Paperclip is not limited to the recruitment of Nazi scientists. It is also a story of the lengths to which different sectors of society were willing to go to maintain the facade of moral righteousness. The narrative was manipulated, witnesses silenced, and information suppressed, all in the pursuit of progress and power. Each act of complicity added another layer of complexity to this clandestine operation, marking it as one of the most intriguing and uncomfortable chapters in American history. However, not everyone was willing to accept the narrative spun by the government and the corporate sphere. Some voices of dissent emerged, trying to expose the truth of Operation Paperclip. Like cracks in a carefully constructed facade, these individuals challenged the prevailing silence and secrecy. One such figure was John Loftus, a former prosecutor with the Office of Special Investigations of the Department of Justice. Loftus stumbled upon the hidden depths of Operation Paperclip while investigating suspected Nazi war criminals living in America. Unraveling the carefully woven threads of deception, he discovered the unsettling truth about the government's recruitment of Nazi scientists. Risking his career and reputation, Loftus became one of the earliest whistleblowers of this clandestine operation. In the realm of journalism, Linda Hunt, an investigative reporter, emerged as a prominent figure in uncovering the uncomfortable truths behind Operation Paperclip. Hunt's work was instrumental in revealing the extent of the government's deception. Her 1991 book, Secret Agenda: The United States Government, Nazi Scientists, and Project Paperclip, 1945 to 1990, was a damning exposé that shed light on the shadowy corners of this operation. Her relentless pursuit of truth, despite the potential personal and professional risks, was a testament to the power of investigative journalism. Among insiders, Arthur Rudolph stood out. Once a respected figure in America's space program, Rudolph had been a key player in manufacturing Hitler's V-2 rockets. When his past was revealed, he chose to leave the country rather than face a judicial hearing. Rudolph's departure marked a significant moment in the narrative of Operation Paperclip, exposing the carefully constructed lies that had protected him and others like him. The risks faced by these whistleblowers were significant. They were up against a tide of vested interests, from governments to corporations, all eager to maintain the status quo. Their careers, reputations, and personal safety were on the line, but they chose to stand up for the truth. Their actions remind us that the story of Operation Paperclip is not just about the scientists, the government, or the corporations who benefited. It's also about those who dared to challenge the prevailing narrative, risking everything to bring the truth to light. Despite the odds, they refused to be silenced, adding another layer of complexity to the story of Operation Paperclip, a narrative of resistance amidst a sea of complicity. The testimonies and accounts we've discussed thus far are compelling, yet it's the declassified documents that offer the most unassailable evidence, providing a chillingly bureaucratic paper trail of Operation Paperclip. These documents, released under the Freedom of Information Act, confirm the vast scale of this covert operation, its participants, and the intricate network of deception that shielded it from public scrutiny. One such document, dated August 1945, is a U.S. State Department memo that explicitly outlines the intention to bring German scientists to America. It describes the scientists as a valuable asset and notes the necessity of exploiting this asset to the fullest extent. This memo, though written in the dry language of bureaucracy, is a stark admission of Operation Paperclip's objective. Another revealing document, a memorandum from the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, JIOA, dated 1946, describes the bleaching process. This term refers to the deliberate sanitization of Nazi scientists' records, erasing evidence of war crimes and active participation in the Nazi Party to facilitate their entry into the United States. Despite these attempts to launder their histories, some scientists' pasts were so notorious that they couldn't be entirely erased. This is evidenced by a 1947 document referring to Dr. Kurt Blome, a high-ranking Nazi scientist who had admitted to conducting experiments with plague vaccines on concentration camp prisoners. The document, from the U.S. War Department, acknowledges Blome's ardent Nazi past, but concludes that his research is of such a high order that his recruitment would be beneficial. The existence of such documents, while shocking, provides undeniable proof of Operation Paperclip. They reveal a calculated orchestration to exploit the scientific minds of an enemy nation, bypassing moral and ethical considerations in the pursuit of technological superiority. Yet, even with these documents in the public domain, debate continues. Some argue that the ends justified the means, that the scientific advancements derived from Operation Paperclip were vital to national security and the space race. Others view it as a dark chapter in American history, a betrayal of the principles of justice and accountability. These declassified files force us to confront an uncomfortable truth, that in the shadows of the triumphant narrative of the space race lies a story of moral compromise and secret alliances. A story that highlights the complexities of power, the allure of knowledge, and the price a nation is willing to pay for supremacy. As the truth about Operation Paperclip seeped into public consciousness, a wave of disbelief, shock, and anger swept across the nation. Here was a story that challenged the widely held belief of America as the moral compass, the righteous force that had fought against the horrors of Nazism. Instead, it revealed a more complex narrative, one of moral trade-offs and hidden maneuvers. The media played an instrumental role in unveiling this hidden chapter of history. Journalists, historians, and researchers painstakingly sifted through archives, piecing together a narrative that the government had hoped to bury. The New York Times, the Washington Post, and other news outlets began reporting on Operation Paperclip, forcing a nationwide conversation. Predictably, this revelation led to a considerable public outcry. The bitter irony of the situation was not lost on the American populace. The same Nazi scientists who had once worked to ensure Hitler's victory were now being credited with America's triumph in the space race. This was a pill that many found hard to swallow. Public trust in government agencies took a severe hit. The covert nature of Operation Paperclip, the lengths to which the government went to sanitize the pasts of these scientists, all contributed to a sense of betrayal. Critics argued that the government had not only deceived its own people, but had also undermined the principles of justice and accountability it claimed to uphold. Yet, amidst the uproar, there were those who defended the operation. They maintained that the ends justified the means, highlighting the scientific advancements that had propelled America to the forefront of the space race. They argued that in the brutal calculus of power and supremacy, such decisions, however morally questionable, were necessary. This debate rages on, even today. Operation Paperclip remains a contested chapter of American history, a symbol of the ethical dilemmas inherent in the pursuit of knowledge and power. It continues to raise questions about the lengths a nation is willing to go to secure its position in the world, and whether any price is too high in the pursuit of progress. The legacy of Operation Paperclip is a reminder that history is seldom black and white. It is a complex tapestry of choices, some celebrated, others concealed, all contributing to the narrative of a nation. This story of secret alliances and moral compromise underscores the importance of transparency, of holding power to account, and of acknowledging the often uncomfortable truths that shape our world. In the modern world, the influence of Operation Paperclip extends beyond the realms of academia and politics, seeping into the very fabric of popular culture. It has found its way into novels, films, and television series, often serving as a backdrop for thrilling narratives of espionage and scientific rivalry. It's become a dark, secretive chapter of history that fascinates and appalls in equal measure, a testament to the lengths humans will go in the name of progress and the ethical boundaries they're willing to cross. The story of Operation Paperclip also continues to fuel conspiracy theories, with some suggesting that the project never truly ended. Instead, they propose that it evolved, transformed into something even more secretive and far-reaching. They argue that the clandestine recruitment of foreign scientists has continued unabated, shaping the course of scientific advancement and international politics in ways that remain hidden from public view. While such theories often lack concrete evidence, they underline the enduring power of the Operation Paperclip narrative and the deep-seated mistrust it instilled in the public consciousness. In the realm of technology, the legacy of Operation Paperclip is undeniable. Many of the scientific advancements that define our modern world have their roots in the work of these scientists. The space programs they helped create paved the way for the International Space Station and Mars rovers. The rockets they designed were the precursors to the ones that today carry satellites and even humans into space. But perhaps the most profound impact of Operation Paperclip is the ethical questions it continues to raise. As we stand on the brink of new scientific frontiers, from artificial intelligence to genetic engineering, these questions have never been more pertinent. How much should we be willing to overlook in our pursuit of knowledge? Where do we draw the line between necessity and moral compromise? Can the ends ever truly justify the means? The legacy of Operation Paperclip serves as a stark reminder that science and ethics are inextricably linked. As we push the boundaries of what we can achieve, we must also grapple with what we should achieve. It underscores the necessity for transparency, accountability, and ethical considerations in all areas of scientific advancement. The lessons of Operation Paperclip are not confined to history. They are vital guideposts as we navigate the complex moral landscape of the future. The questions that loom over Operation Paperclip are not simply historical curiosities. They reach into the heart of our understanding of science, morality, and the very nature of progress. The story of these scientists, their achievements, their sins, and the shadowy operation that brought them to America is a tangled web of brilliance and darkness. It is a tale that continues to resonate, to provoke debate, and to unsettle. The veil of secrecy that initially shrouded Operation Paperclip has been partially lifted. Yet, many details remain obscure, hidden in the labyrinth of classified documents, redacted reports, and unspoken stories. The true extent of the operation, the full list of those involved, and the depth of their contributions to American science and technology are still matters of conjecture. The enigmatic nature of Operation Paperclip is part of its enduring intrigue. It is a narrative steeped in mystery, a Pandora's box of ethical dilemmas and moral paradoxes. It is also a stark reminder of the lengths nations will go in pursuit of supremacy, of the thin line that separates innovation from exploitation, knowledge from power, and science from ideology. In many ways, Operation Paperclip is a mirror reflecting the duality of human nature. It embodies our capacity for remarkable innovation and our propensity for horrific violence. It is a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and the relentless quest for knowledge. Yet, it also stands as a chilling reminder of our ability to rationalize, to turn a blind eye to atrocities in the name of progress. As we delve into the enigmatic world of Operation Paperclip, we are forced to grapple with uncomfortable truths about the past and unsettling questions about the present and future. The story of these scientists, transported from the ruins of Nazi Germany to the heart of American science and technology, is not just a chapter in history. It is a living, breathing conundrum that continues to haunt the corridors of power, the halls of academia, and the silent spaces of our collective conscience. Operation Paperclip serves as a grim testament to the complicated, often murky relationship between science, ethics, and power. It is a stark reminder of the moral ambiguity that often lurks behind the march of progress and the shadowy corners where science, ambition, and ideology intersect. As we reflect on its legacy, we are reminded that the pursuit of knowledge, however noble, is not immune to the darker impulses of human nature. The echoes of Operation Paperclip continue to reverberate, a haunting refrain that underscores the timeless, universal struggle between the quest for progress and the imperative of ethical conduct. Thanks for listening. This has been The Conspiracy Files with Paige Carter. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.